All righty, here we are at This Week in Birding and Nature Photography on Sunlit Earth. And my name is Stephen Ramsden. I am the director of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project and the Sunlit Earth 501c3s. We are registered nonprofits in the United States, and we promote science among everyone. We think that science and nature is the key to preserving our species and getting over all the silly things we argue about today. And we have a weekly show, and here it is. We talk about birding. We talk about, Diet Coke, gotta hide that. Hold on. Okay. We talk about fun things, and we try to have special guests from all over the world. This is our 14th show, and we've had people from Kosovo, England, the Dominican Republic, Panama, United States, Georgia this week, and we cover all sorts of topics. So this week's special guest is already with us, Corina Newsome, and hey, Corina. And hey, and we have Alexandra Hart with us. Corina, she is from the UK. She is an avid, she's a medical researcher by trade and an avid solar astronomer and imager, international award-winning imager, and a birder, like the rest of us. We have Connie Corrali. I always say her name wrong, but hey, she's with us. And you never know who's going to tune in. And occasionally we get fruitcakes that tune in too that we have to dump off the Zoom meeting. And if that happens, I apologize in advance, but we have all the security we can. We try to make it open so anybody can get on. We start our show usually, Corina and I have never actually met in person, I don't think, but I have watched her since she's been with Georgia Audubon, and she is a force to be reckoned with. And I'm really, really happy that she could make some time for us. She's very young. She's starting out, sort of. She's in a master's program. And we are going to talk with Corina. I think you're the greatest thing to happen to Georgia Audubon in a decade. And I'm really happy to have you. I have lots of friends there. I think this is a really big step in the right direction for them. So we'll talk about you, and we'll brag about you a lot in just a minute. But we normally start our show by going over what's happening locally, and this will be just a few minutes. I saw Corina this morning. She had icicles hanging from her eyebrows. She was outside doing an accessibility hike with Georgia Audubon on live camera, and I couldn't help but feel really sorry for her because it was so freezing. It was terrible out there. But hopefully she's in a nice warm room now, and she'll be in a better mood to tell us more about herself. So I'm going to share a screen real quick. And yes, I'm an IT genius, as you can see. Okay, and here comes Rebecca Sealand, who's entering our group as well. Rebecca will be in just a minute. Okay, so, oh yeah, that's us, isn't it? Yeah, we don't need that. Let's look at Sunlit Earth and see what is going on locally. You know, we've had 1 million pine siskins here for weeks now, and they've been awesome. But you know, there's so many of them, it's hard to appreciate them because they flitter around so much. But they are beautiful birds. The males and the females have been at the nature preserve for weeks now. The red wing blackbirds just invaded the preserve. We've had millions of them running around. The pine warblers are here. The American goldfinches are here in their winter colors. Let's see if we can find something really cool on the Sunlit Earth page. Just one moment. Sunlit Earth is our American subsidiary of the Charlie Bates Solar Astronomy Project. Hey, there's something really cool. That's Corina. and looks like she's been wading in the mud here in these shorts.
Oh, wow.
So we did have some really cool sightings of red crossbills and evening grosbeaks in North Georgia. They haven't made it down here yet, but I'm hoping they will soon, because frankly, I'm still isolating pretty much as an old geezer with comorbidities. It's not really safe for me to go out and do too much, but when they get down this far, I'm going to go out and see them. Rebecca Sealand, I guess, is on. Your image is all red, in case you didn't know. You might reset your video or something. Oh, there she is. Hey, Rebecca Sealand.
Oh, hey.
This is a beautiful photo here of the sun rise or set with what appears to be a heron, possibly, taken by Tony Tiapan, which I always say wrong as well. And let's see what else. Let me admit Steve Rushing. He just joined us. Oh yeah, I like this one. Betsy Arrington is one of our sponsored photographers. She is down on the coast in Georgia, and this is a photograph of a roosting site for egrets and roseate spoonbills and all sorts of other beautiful birds. But just look at the soft focus and the excellent processing of this image. It really makes you go into a dreamy state and, just kind of appreciate the beauty of nature. And Corina, if you're wondering, I do talk a lot, and we're going to get to how great you are in just a minute. But I like to blab for a few minutes because, I don't get out much. And the quarantine, I've got all these things I need to say, but I'll control myself in a moment.
No, this is amazing. I'm loving it.
We'll get right to it. Yeah, I guess it is good for you because you're usually doing all the talking on these webcasts. Maybe it'd be fun just to sit back and relax. Our friends in the Dominican Republic see the Hispaniola parakeets all year long. This is my friend Fritz Cornelio, who I went and stayed with a couple years ago, and we did a little birding with our friend Raphael. And these birds are everywhere in the Dominican Republic, and we don't get too many of those here. In fact, Raphael is just checking in now with our meeting, so he'll be here as well. You're getting a great turnout. Let's see what else is going on. Alligators, eagles, cardinals. Oh, there's one that Alexandra Hart published from the UK, a frozen blackbird eating an old apple. She is one of our favorites here because she has all different birds than we have. She gets robins there that are nothing like our robins. And Alexandra saw her first owl recently, and she's very excited about birding. So it's great to watch the astronomers come over from the other side of my nonprofit and participate in this because, let's be honest, birding is a fantastic way to relax, to enjoy nature. If you like math, birding, and nature in general, like Isaac Newton said in Principia de Mathematica, math is the language of nature. So when you've learned advanced mathematics and gone into calculus and multidimensional calculus like I have, it all becomes visualized in nature. And when I'm walking around in nature, that's what I see. I see these shapes and figures, and I go, wow, that is, if I differentiate this and I take that's math, and it's just right in front of you. So I really, really, really like math, and I really, really, really like nature. It looks like Steve Rushing is on with us, and he may be out in the field, possibly at Clyde Shepherd. Where are you, Steve? Oh, he's connecting to audio now. We'll give him a minute. And Raphael.
Hi.
Hola, senor.
Hola, hola.
Corina, do you happen to speak any Spanish?
Un poco.
See. Me too. Very un poco. And we are going to get started. So, Steve, where are you, my friend?
I'm standing in your favorite place.
The Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve. What's going on over there?
Well, I got a black and warbler this morning.
Right, black and white.
Right, the fox sparrows are out. Brown creeper, pileated. It's been a good morning.
Yeah, you appear to be freezing, much like Corina was earlier.
I'm desperately trying to find some sunshine. So.
Right. Well, I'm so glad that you're able to check in, and I hope you can show us a couple of birds while you're walking around. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go to a different view here. Well, I'll wait on that. Corina, I first saw you on one of the Georgia Audubon bird hikes, virtual bird hikes, where you were one of the participants, and so was I. And I got to tell you, I was blown away by your presence, by your, how would I say? You're just very well spoken, very animated. You're really a breath of fresh air for the hobby. And I was really happy to see, and I was like, man, she has got it going on. I got to find a way to be more like her, and I've been running this nonprofit for 12 years. And the entire goal to start with, for me at least, was to get everyone else involved in the things that I love so much, and the things that can help you get away from the standard roles we all have in society, make money, have a dull job, do nothing, be frustrated, go home, blah, blah, blah. With just a little exposure to science and math, I've seen miracles happen in people. To me, I was so fortunate to have some people take me aside. I grew up in Southwest Atlanta, And we had no money or anything. My parents were military or whatever. And we were in a poor neighborhood. I didn't know I was poor until I got out of the neighborhood, but I didn't know I was white either till I got out of the neighborhood. But anyway, just a little exposure to science and nature really changed everything in my life, and went from this direction where a lot of my friends went to this direction where I am now. And I've had a fantastic life because of it. I've been moderately to maybe even more successful. I've been able to retire at a very early age. I've been able to run this program and just share astronomy and the wonders of the night sky, and then the wonders of the sun, and then the amazing things about sunlight in nature with so many people. And I've seen it turn people around, man. I've watched them. I see them bloom all the time. And it just takes a tiny bit of effort. So that's what I like the most about you. Tell us a little bit about you, and welcome to This Week in Sunlit Earth. I'm going to make you the main view because nobody wants to see me anymore. Here we go.
Well, Stephen, it is an absolute honor. Let me tell you, because so when I first met Stephen, it was on this same like virtual field trip that we were on, and one of my friends and coworkers was having technical issues, and it was my first ever virtual field trip. So I was the only like staff person on, and I was like super nervous because I wasn't seeing very many birds, and I was like, oh no. But Stephen, I didn't realize who Stephen was until he started talking, and he showed up with like some sort of ears on, right? And I'm like, who's this person? And he just started talking and sharing his love with the outdoors, and I was just like, I have never met anyone like this, and I need to find out how to be his friend. And Stephen, I told my coworkers, Dottie and Michelle and everybody, I was like, I want him to be my uncle, but like, I don't know if I can tell him that. But anyway, I'm so excited to be here because you don't know this, Stephen, but I am obsessed with outer space. And when I was younger, I wanted to be an astronaut, right? And I told my mom, I think I was like 3 or 4 or something, and I pointed up at the sky and I said, I want to go there. And my mom took all of my passions very, very seriously, which is the reason why I'm here now. So she literally called NASA and said, what colleges do you usually get astronauts from? Then she called those colleges and said, what high schools do they usually go to? Worked her way all the way down to like middle schools or something like that, like could set me up for success. But then she found out that she like called space camp, one of the space camps, and they were like when I was older, and they were like, is she afraid of roller coasters? Is she okay on roller coasters? And she was like, no, she hates roller coasters. And they were like, she may not want to be an astronaut. So at that point, things kind of switched. But outer space is the single, like, I mean, I don't want to call it single anything, but it's the thing that really quickly centers me, even in the middle of absolute chaos. And in high school, I would spend hours, like I was supposed to be paying attention in class, doing work. I would spend hours just scrolling through pictures of nebula, of constellations, the pictures that NASA would release like every day, like some of their best pictures. And it was just like all that. Of course, my specialty is in wildlife science, and that ended up being the field that I pursued, because as much as I love space, I love the natural world and I love wildlife. And so I grew up, while I was obsessed with space, I was also paging through National Geographic and all of my favorite wildlife books that I had and my wildlife shows, just building up knowledge about the outdoors. But what I didn't realize was all that time, I wasn't seeing any Black scientists. I wasn't seeing any scientists of color. I wasn't seeing any women scientists even. And I didn't realize it, but that was actually crystallizing what I thought was possible for myself. So by the time I was like 18 and about to graduate college, I was planning on being a veterinarian, but then I passed out in surgery one day, and I had around. And so I ended up connecting with a Black zookeeper near me at the Philadelphia Zoo. I'm from Philadelphia originally. And when I saw her be a zookeeper and be a wildlife specialist, I was like, what? I was like, I realized that I could do that, and I don't know why I didn't think of it. And so from that point forward, I went to school for zoo and wildlife biology, and I was a zookeeper for about 4 years after graduating from college. And then I fell in love with birds while I was in college. I took ornithology and was hooked from the first day. And so I was a zookeeper first, and then now I am a master's student studying nest predation in the seaside sparrow, which is a little bird that lives on the coast of Georgia, along with some others on the Atlantic and Gulf Coast.
Are you at Georgia State? Where are you going to school?
Georgia Southern, yeah.
Georgia Southern. Okay.
Yeah, and so I am wrapping up my degree right now and recently just started full-time at Georgia Audubon as the community engagement manager, which is, of course, where I've had the pleasure of crossing paths with Stephen. So that's kind of the long version of who I am.
Yeah, no, that's a short version. I'm thinking of who you are. You know, you're probably easy to underestimate, just like I am, because, you know, you don't push everything on everyone. But, you know, I love meeting people that have so many fascinating things about them. And the whole black thing and white thing and all that, you know, we're 500 years too early for this place. It's irrelevant to me, but unfortunately it's been forced into the limelight and it's become, you know, more relevant in our country alone. And I could tell you everyone on this program that's from another branch of our nonprofit in an international community, this problem doesn't really have any, I mean, it's probably still, you know, there's differences and things, but it's nothing like it is here in the US. I mean, when I've traveled around setting up this program in other countries, it's irrelevant, really. And another big thing that strikes me is everyone else outside of the US is your age in these programs, in these astronomy programs. But when you come to the United States, everyone's 60 plus. It's a bunch of old white guys. You know, it's some really unusual and silly differences between the way we handle these things and the way other countries handle it. And Raphael is smiling, I know, but you know, it's just such a dumb thing to be worried about. But we have to worry about it in the US, especially in the southeastern US, I would think, is probably a unique environment. And you come from Philly originally?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you probably had some culture shock when you came down to this town. And I grew up in the Black community, which, you know, I mean, I'd like to say it doesn't matter to me and I don't care, but I really do care because it's such a stupid thing to be divided about. And we'll talk some more about the programs you're involved in with that. But when you were saying I wanted to be an astronaut, you know, my mom this, and that's exactly the same story I had because I was the nerdiest dude that ever lived. And my mother pushed me. My father was killed when I was early, but my mother pushed me into science, and she didn't care what I did as long as I loved it. And as long as it was mathematical and science, she said, here's all this stuff you can do, or you can go out and be in that crowd. And she didn't force it, you know, and I'm assuming you had the same thing. She knew, and I'm sure your mom knew, that there was something unusual about us. We had a little more aptitude maybe than they were used to. Just go do what you love. And that's how I got where I am. And I love seeing that with you. You're pretty young, and I don't take offense, but you're in your early 20s, right?
I'm 27.
27. Yeah. So you're like barely starting out. I mean, we're all old.
Not old.
Well, I've noticed in this, you know, I can't speak for the entire United States, but I've noticed in our little region that the birders generally don't get into birding until they're later on in life or near retirement. And I'd really like to get people involved earlier because it's such a cool thing to do, man. And even if it's not birding, just going out in the woods and looking around, you know, relaxing, forest bathing, as they call it in Europe. You know, why do you think it is that young people, I mean, I already know the answer to this, it's rhetorical, but why do you think it is that young people don't get involved in these kind of things until later?
Well, you know, there's a lot of, I think that's actually a big question, and there are a lot of different threads in there. I think that, you know, there are differences between people who grow up in city environments like me versus those who grow up or live in more, you know, rural areas where they're exposed to and being outside and enjoying outside recreationally is the norm. I think there are differences culturally speaking. When you think about things like racial divide in the United States, there's, you know, historical trauma that feeds into it. It's a really big thing. But I would say when it comes to age, you know, and why older folks are the ones who are most involved, I think that honestly, Stephen, I think mainstream birding, right? Like even the name, the word birding, you know, if you were to say to go up to a young person, right, and say, you know, are you a birder, right? It's less likely that they would say yes, right? You know, but if you were to say, do you like birds, or like, do you enjoy birds, or do you enjoy being outside? It's much more, you know, just something like a descriptor. They might be more likely to say yes. So I think there's even like maybe a culture of birding that trends more towards people, you know, older folks, retired folks. You know, when you think of birder, I think of someone who can afford to buy cameras, right? Who can buy equipment, who can afford the things that birders do. I can't even afford that, right? I can't afford a camera. And so like, had I not been exposed to the culture of birding, I probably would never call myself a birder, but of course I enjoy birds. I love wildlife.
Yeah, that's a good
I think
point.
there are some culture elements that kind of skew who we think of as birders and who's really considered a mainstream bird enthusiast.
It's a really good point, Corina, and I hadn't really thought of that, but there's a program on in the 70s, that's the 1970s, when I was a young person, called the Beverly Hillbillies. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes, I've never seen it.
Well, the one of the characters was Jane Hathaway, who was the bank receptionist for the Beverly Hillbillies, and she was a birder. And they dressed her up as nerdy as you could possibly look, with the big, long, thick glasses and the birding vest. And she was always looked retarded or something when she was out birding. And I think it did a lot of damage, to the hobby. But
my mom actually, I just remembered, she's always like, "Are you like that woman on Beverly Hillbillies?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"What are you thinking about?"
Jane Hathaway.
She's making connections right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's an excellent point. Maybe we should call it something different. I thought forest bathing was a pretty cool name. Or, if you ask people, at the nature preserve that I manage, the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve, we have these groups that come in by time every day. And I sit and watch and I'm just puzzled by it sometimes, but it's people my age that have binoculars and cameras from sunrise to about 10 a.m. And then from about 10 to 2, it's mothers with infants. And then after 2, it's people your age coming in dressed cool looking, trying to act like they're not there to bird, but they still walk around and do the same thing. And they still look at animals and they just kind of hang out in the preserve. It's just weird to me that these differences exist. And I don't mean to sound naive. I'm fully aware of what it's like to be white or black or Asian or anything else in the Southern United States, because I grew up here in the 60s, but I just wish it didn't exist. And I wish I wish a lot of things, but in reality it does. So we have to be conscious of it, And one thing I really like about you, and I don't know how you'll take this, but I really like that you don't start out every lecture with, "Hey, I'm black, watch me bird." I don't care, but it's also obvious, making people feel guilty because they may or may not have discriminatory attitudes. It's not going to change anybody's mind. Showing a very accomplished and learned person that you want to be like Corina Newsome, who happens to also have a slightly different skin tone or ethnicity, whatever. I think that goes a lot longer, a lot further than just throwing it in your face. "Hey, quit being a racist." Okay. We all have these judgmental tendencies about us. But one-on-one, I've noticed that it's always different than it is in a group. It's always this group saying this group and that group saying that. But when you get one-on-one with people, generally, if you're a dick, then nobody likes you. Did I say that? What I meant, if you're a decent person, you're going to have a lot of good friends. If you're hard to get along with and no one likes you, it's, that's the way it's going to be, regardless of what ethnicity group you're involved in. And, I don't pretend to understand it as well as everybody else, but it just seems so stupid to me, So what can we do? And I know this is important to you. I mean, can you tell us some of the groups that you're involved in and a little bit about why they're important to you?
Yeah. So I will say that because
I don't mean to be offended. I hope you're not offended at all by any of
no.
this.
I
It's just such a dumb thing to me.
Conversation. No, I welcome this conversation. And so a lot of my work and my life, in fact, I would say that my objective is to focus my work on communities who are Black, who are of color, who are from low-income backgrounds, because the reality is, as you said, that there are, as much as we hate that it exists, there are divides and exclusionary systems that keep these people groups from being able to have equal access to the outdoors. And it manifests in a variety of ways, but it falls along ethnic lines, it falls along socioeconomic lines in this country. And so because I am the direct product of that, and I feel like I'm only here because I got lucky, right? I happened to, really what happened was, I passed out in surgery when I was going to be a veterinarian. And at my church, I made a big stink about it. I was freaking out. Somebody in my church heard about it and they were like, "Hey, my sister works at the zoo." So literally, had I not happened to have this random friend at a church who had a sister at the zoo, I wouldn't be here. Growing up, as much as I love wildlife and as much as my mother encouraged me, I'm from a low-income background and from the city, and I had no access to outdoor education, no access to, like any sort of nature bathing. And you know what I mean? Like my mom, there were a couple times that, over my childhood when my mom would be able to put us on a bus and cart us out to the suburbs and we walk around outside, but like it wasn't a part of my everyday life by a long stretch. And I couldn't afford to go to like camps or anything like that that exposed me to it. I didn't know any wildlife professionals. And so the combination of access that was, again, along socioeconomic lines, and then representation, which is an issue along ethnic, racial lines, that set me up for not even conceptualizing that I could do this today. And it wasn't until something got me over those boundaries that I was able to be here. And so my work, that I want to accomplish in my life is to find, those places where those exclusions exist, holes in the pipeline, so to speak, to fill those with resources, to fill those with representation, because it really impacts, that's why we see a conservation field that is vastly white, and vastly male, because, so you have to think about, why is this? Where are these structural elements situated that's keeping this field so white? And I want to work at getting, removing those systems and making it equally accessible. And so before I became part of Georgia Audubon, I was part of a group called Black AF in STEM, which stands for Black as
we know.
STEM. And it's really it's like a group chat basically of like 100 people who are in STEM who are Black, and we're all the only people we know in our field physically, right? So I work at Georgia Audubon now, and there are 2 other Black employees, which is more Black people than I've ever had in my same in the field of wildlife conservation, right? But before this, right, I was the only one until grad school where I had like one friend, and so we were all pretty much isolated from people like us, but we met on social media. So my friend Jason Ward, who's a birder here in Atlanta, Georgia, he like gathered a bunch of people and was like, hey, we're all Black, we're all like in STEM, let's make a group chat. And so we did. And so that's literally what it was. And then the same group was the one that put on Blackbirders Week this summer, that really highlighted the experiences of Blackbirders and celebrated Blackbirders. And, because a lot of people don't like talking about in the birding and in the natural sciences space. Like oftentimes I'm told that, what you're talking about is too political. It's too, it's too some one thing or another, and it makes people uncomfortable. And it's like, unfortunately, this is my life. Like I would, of course, rather not have to deal with these things, but I do, and people do. And so we need to address them. So
it makes me uncomfortable too, just to let you know that it exists, but it's not this way everywhere. I want you to know that.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And I wish that we were more like those places where it's not a problem. But so essentially, that's what that's the thing that's kind of at the center of my work. I'm also part of a group called Young Evangelicals for Climate Action. I'm not evangelical. I'm a Christian, but it's an organization that focuses on mobilizing faith communities around acting on climate change and coming up with climate solutions and demanding our government and leaders to act on climate change. Essentially,
and that was called what? Young Evangelicals for Climate Change?
For climate action.
Is that climate action? Okay.
So what I realize, and what people are continuing, of course, to realize, is that things like climate change and environmental issues and wildlife conservation and justice and human rights, all of these things intersect.
Most certainly.
They intersect very much, and it's important to understand and get people to understand that intersection, because you can have, and I'm talking a little bit right now, but 1 second, you can have wildlife conservation, right, that happens at the expense of people. Right. So if you're not thinking about people when you make wildlife conservation decisions, you can end up hurting people in your attempt to save wildlife. And we've seen that play out, not even just here in the US, but globally, where, people are disenfranchised, their land is taken from them, their resources are taken from them to protect, an endangered species or a threatened ecosystem, things like that. But if you have an intersectional understanding, you realize, okay, how can we maximize benefit for the people and for the wildlife so that everyone wins? Because if it's not going to be sustainable. So just bringing intersectionality into the conversation of wildlife conservation, of environmental health, climate action, all of that is kind of where my head and my mission lie.
Right, I got you. So Black AF, Young Evangelicals for Climate Action, Blackbirders Week, Georgia Audubon, Georgia Southern University Master's Program, Corina Newsome as an awesome person in general. You got a lot going on, man. You got like 100 irons in the fire, yo. So, and I'm really proud of you. I want to tell you, just listening to what you're saying, it makes me proud. I'd like to point out that let's see, 70% of our nonprofit, we're active in 27 countries.
That's awesome.
And 70% of our nonprofit is Hispanic or North African.
That's amazing.
And we have one person of any of those regions on our program. So
That's amazing.
yeah, it is. And I don't understand that either. And really, it's when I said it's uncomfortable for me, it is uncomfortable for me because it's just so stupid. And running this program in other countries, I've seen that it doesn't really have to be this way. But it still is down here in the South. And I'm embarrassed and eager to change at the same time. And, it's more difficult for me though, because I look like the people that caused the problem, and it's been difficult for me to, I understand how people perceive you and how things are, but, one-on-one, nobody is going to come up and say, you're an asshole and you're causing these problems. But in a group setting, if you look over here and there's a bunch of guys that look like me, and there's a bunch of people that look like you, everybody's going to naturally take these sides. And I also wish that wasn't the case. When we get people out on bird hikes, I don't care what they look like or where they're from. Generally, when you see a couple of birds and they see that everything's cool, everybody just drops all those walls usually, and they have a good time and they learn something. And I've seen it in astronomy. I've seen it even in like math summer camps I've given, or how to make a solar camp, or bird hikes. I've seen everybody come up and they start out with the concrete between you and them. And then you just smile and say something nice to them. And then all of a sudden it's all gone. Would you agree that happens pretty regularly with you?
Yeah, I would say that science in general, but easily birding and astronomy are a very unifying activity in that it's very easy because like in a moment, so much joy is sparked, like the right bird shows up, or, you get the glimpse of whatever you're looking at in outer space. It's like that the overwhelming sense of joy is extremely unifying, which is why birding in particular has so much potential to be this unifying activity, right? And so that
agree 100%.
Like as you've witnessed and as I've definitely witnessed, it's a beautiful activity that promotes connection between people. Yes.
Yeah, and there's plenty of these activities. Also, you and I happen to love this one, but I think it goes even deeper to a root thing, and that is that we're all human beings, and when you really love something and you really appreciate something, you sharing that with someone else creates sort of a bond between you, and it lowers the walls, and all of a sudden you realize that each of you have something that's worthwhile to listen to and understand. And it's also helped me to relegate all the different things that we get upset about into their perspective, because I have political views, I'm pretty sure are identical to yours. But it's about 1% of my personality, and for us to be arguing and fighting over these silly things today, people are allowing those things to get way out of perspective and become 98% of what they're fighting about when they're in a mass setting on social media or in a group. But when you get one-on-one, to me, it seems that those things kind of go away and people naturally try to find things that they have in common. At least I'd like for that to be the case. And there's always going to be people that are just, ornery and bitter and hard to get along with. But even those people, if you're just friendly to them for a little while, they stop being that way. I know I'm rambling, but I just wish I had this wand that I could just go bam, and we would wake up in the year 2500 and all this would be irrelevant because we'd all be the same color and no one would care. Do you have any comment on that? I know it's a disjointed thought, but
I would say that one piece of perspective that I would like to offer is that when it comes to things, so I've during Blackbirders Week, I fielded a lot of commentary ranging from you're the racist, right? Like trying to separate and bring division between birders. We're all the same. We all love birds. I'm just here for birds. To people who are just like confused, right? By like, why are we talking about this? And the point is that when people are like, we don't need to talk about things like politics is usually the umbrella they put it under. So when Christian Cooper, who is a Blackbirder,
I know who Christian Cooper is.
in Europe, who many of us have admired for some time, and Jason and his brother know Christian because they're from New York too. When he was birding and told this woman, hey, you're not supposed to have your dog off the leash in this area. It's a wildlife area. She didn't do it. He said, I've got dogs. Like he kept dog treats.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was tired of people like letting their dogs run around. So and then she called the cops and said, an African American man is threatening my dog's my life and my dog's life, like straight up lied on him. You know what I mean? And then later that day, George Floyd was murdered by the police. And it's from the outside, it can seem like these are kind of petty issues, or why are we talking about this? Or people get really mad when we talk about it. But the point is, the reality is that some of these issues are life and death for Black people, or are life and death for other demographics, right? So you can be talking about police brutality and police, the way they treat Black people, Black men,
Right.
Or you could be talking, right, about if you think about economics, right? Certain parts of Georgia, there's not a hospital for miles and miles. It's not an OBGYN, right? There's these different elements that are rooted in things like politics or legislation that have implications for people's actual survival in life. And so for us, a lot of times when I'm talking about things that relate to policy or legislation or political parties or whatever, for me, it's not like something kind of petty that I'm just looking for a fight or whatever. It's like, no, we're actually talking about people's ability to survive.
Yeah, I think that your
access.
presentation of it is really the key to you getting it across. And I, you said about the communities not having any access to anything. Yeah, man. I mean, where I grew up, there's one store, and that's a Family Dollar.
Yeah.
There's no shiny new Publix down in Ben Hill, Georgia, Southwest Atlanta, where I live. There is a public park, but if you park there, you're probably going to get killed or get robbed, and there's no police protection. So it's not like it is up here where there's shiny everything, there's brand new stores. All these issues are things that a lot of birders go into the woods to get away from, and some people feel pressured and they feel frankly scared when someone confronts them with these kind of things. But instead of being confrontational, I think just stating your case and showing how fun it is, and that you also happen to not look exactly like me, I think makes a really good impression. I'm hoping, and I'm naive, I mean, I've always been naive, but I'm hoping that people just edge into this and just shut the hell up about it and just stop being mean to each other, But again, it's like I'm smoking dope or something. I mean, I realized the situation here and how it is. And I'll tell you a couple of things. I have a good friend who happens to be African American. Okay. And his name is Josiah. And we bird together a lot. And we were birding one day, and a woman came up and said, "Oh, hey, Jason, nice to meet you." And talked to him for several minutes, thinking it was Jason Ward, who's another Black birder for you guys in other countries. And I just watched that, and that's not the first time I've seen that, because everybody where I grew up was Black and I was the white guy. So another time, well, we won't talk about that, but it's just a problem that I'm really glad that you're addressing, and I wish I could address it more efficiently in my position. But I don't know. I'm not young enough to know what's cool now and what things work, but I did do it pretty successfully in astronomy. And the way I did it in astronomy was by just going out to these schools all around Georgia, and most schools in Georgia are Title I, and they're poor, and they happen to be mostly people of color. And just who cares? I went and said, "This is what I do. This is cool. Let's go do it." And we would look through telescopes and we would talk about solar flares. And I've been doing that for 15 years. Message after message on Facebook or YouTube about, "Hey man, I remember that. That was really cool. Now I'm over at University of Alabama in Huntsville studying rocketeering," or something like that. And even though I'm not changing the world, I am making a few minor changes with a few people. And I think if we could get more people to do that, then it would become a majority of people. I mean, things are changing. We're evolving as a species, biologically and also socially, hopefully, and we're in a transitional period. And I really appreciate people like you that care enough about it, to make a stand on it.
Yeah, no, and exactly what you're describing, right? You choosing to take the resources and expertise and equipment, right, to places where there's an absence of that, right, is literally addressing inequity. And it has to be, right? Because if no one does that at the individual level, like individuals like you doing it, and even at the overarching structural level, like where resources are allocated for education, we're going to maintain we're going to repeat history over and over and over again about who ends up in these careers and who doesn't,
Right.
Because they don't have exposure to the education, access to the resources, and it will continue. So we need more people doing what you're doing.
It's very
And
true.
being intentional about where you invest those resources.
Yeah, it's very true. And I really hope I wake up one day and everything's different. But that's not going to happen. You gotta actually do something to make things different.
Yeah.
And I want you to know I 100% support what you're doing and what Jason's doing. And really, I really want this to succeed. And I don't have the words, which is a shocker to most of my friends. I don't have the words to say exactly how much I want this to succeed, but I do want it to succeed. And I think it will, but I think it will take a little more time than a person of your youth is going to be willing to accept. But I think that we're on the right track. Corina, thank you again for being on. Would you mind taking a few comments or questions from people that are watching from around the world?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I know my friend Alexandra, who's a genius and a wonderful person altogether, has a wonderfully interesting comment to add. So Alexandra, you've listened to this. What do you think? What can you tell us? She's in the UK.
Well, ask a question or comment about the talk. What do you mean, Stephen?
About what?
Ask a question or comment about the talk.
Yeah, comment, either one. I want you to add in something to our program because you always have something great to add.
I was just going to ask, what is your most life-changing bird watching experience? Usually you see a certain bird or a certain thing that happens and it just makes you go, wow, that's going to change my life from now on.
Yeah.
What experience have you got?
So there are, so the one that I think of, there was one that got me into birding, right? It's when I got introduced to the blue jay. I had never seen a blue jay in my life. And I saw one, my ornithology professor put it up on the screen on the first day of class when I was in college. And I was like, what is that? And everybody was like, that's a blue jay. And then I had never seen one, never in my life. And I was 21. And then I went outside and they were everywhere. And I'm like, wow, the power of exposure, right? And that was kind of the point at which I started becoming a birder. But the most I think emotional, more life-changing kind of experience, I would say, when it comes to birds was, so after I took ornithology, I started stalking birds like it was my full-time job. And I learned in that same day that I learned about the blue jay, I learned about the Pileated Woodpecker, and which is a woodpecker that's like the size of a crow. And when my teacher, he showed us a picture and he was like, it's like this big. I was like, what? I was like learning, I was just like, my mind was like, it was overstimulated with the birds. I was like, you're kidding. So from that moment, I was like, I'm going to find a bird. I went to college in Northeast Ohio, in Canton, Ohio. And so from that day, in Northeast Ohio, there is an AM frequency radio station that gives rare bird alerts. And so I would me and some of my friends would tune into that channel or station. Yeah, that station. And I was just waiting for someone to say there was a pileated woodpecker. I was going around to all the habitats I thought they should be. There was even one day where I was in flats, in basically sandals out in the snow somewhere. I misjudged the weather, looking for this bird. A year had passed, and then on February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2015, my boyfriend at the time, his mom was actually a birder, which is it worked out for me because I couldn't afford even binoculars at that time. So she was my plug. She told me, she was like, hey, there was a spotting of a pileated woodpecker at this place an hour away, and it was blizzarding, a full blizzard. You could not see more than 5 feet in front of you on the road. She was like, we're going. I said, yes. So we got on the road and drove out to this remote nature preserve somewhere an hour away, and just started walking into the woods. And at this point, the snow was kind of halfway up the calf, a foot and some change high. And the snow was falling super slowly, right? The big snow. And all of a sudden, I had been listening to these birds' calls, really just getting it in my mind so I'd be ready when I saw one. I heard the laughing call of the pileated woodpecker that sounds very much almost like a high-pitched monkey or something. And so we all freeze, and I'm like, this isn't happening. I could not believe after 12 months it was happening. And then sure enough, right after that, either that flaming red crest that they have, you just saw it come through the snow, and it landed on the side of a pine tree. and I dropped to my knees and started crying in the snow. I was on my knees in the snow, weeping. And that moment was just like, it was after 12 months of just, doing ridiculous things to try and find this bird, to find it under the most extreme circumstances was just like, that will be with me for the rest of my life. And I'm going to eventually get a tattoo that commemorates that moment, as well as the blue jay. So yeah, that's the story.
Oh, that's the magic of bird watching. I love hearing other people's experiences, of what really moved them, because you see that great big smile on your face, and it's just sort of like, oh, it's magic.
Yeah, it really is. And I tell you, like, they have, to me, like, when I look at birds, I think the thing that just always recenters me about birds is, like, because I've had the privilege to be able to study birds academically, it's like I have an idea of, like, the extremes that their bodies can endure, right? The migration, the heat, the water, whatever it is, whatever kind of extreme elements they're exposed to, but they weigh like nothing, right? So, like, I see a hummingbird, right? Or I see a cardinal, or I see, any bird, migratory or not. And it's like, these birds survive ridiculous temperature extremes, heat and cold, right? They fly ridiculous distances, and they weigh nothing. Like, if you were to give me the body of a bird and say, this bird can do, and list the things that birds can do, I wouldn't believe it. If I was not a biologist, I wouldn't believe it. And so they're just kind of like the Emily Dickinson poem, hope is like the thing with feathers. Like, birds really are the living version of hope. Like, they are literally hope embodied. And so they're a constant reminder that when things, by all normal circumstances, seem very impossible or unlikely, they're still very much possible. So I love birds for that reason.
Yeah, I think that they're wonderful, how much joy they can bring. No matter how depressed and sad and everything the world is, and you're getting down and you're getting depressed, if you just sit and watch a bird.
I'm going to steal that hope line from you, by the way. I like that one.
It's just, it calms you, and it just takes away all of your stresses, and you just see their beauty, and how they're just getting on with life. And I just find that, like the miracle of the natural world. I think that they're a great healer.
Yes,
agree more.
Very healing.
Rebecca, what are you thinking about over there? She's muted still. Rebecca helped us redo the Clyde Shepherd Nature Preserve trail map the other day, and it turned out to be wonderful because she's a Adobe Illustrator expert, and we worked on it together, and that's now published on our website. And Corina, all these people are involved in our nonprofit, or donors to our nonprofit, and some of them run their country's affiliate of the Charlie Bates Solar Restoring Project. Rebecca, how's it going, man? Where's Dwayne?
Good. I just want to say I love Corina's enthusiasm, and I didn't start. I'm even older than Stephen, so really
Not possible.
And my husband and I both we used to be photographers. We both kind of got back into our photography a few years ago and met Stephen and Steve Rushing and some other people down at Clyde Shepherd. So we were traveling on a trip, and I've always liked wildlife and those kind of vacations, but it's like, God, we need to start learning some of these birds, and then going down to Clyde Shepherd and doing those hikes. But I really understand. I remember a few years ago, the first time we went to Cades Cove in the Smoky Mountains, and I was so excited because it's like, oh my God, I hope we see some bears. There's all of these animals. I've seen them on National Geographic, and we see them at zoos and that. But the first time we were driving on our first day, and it's like bear jam, because there's all the cars are stopping, and I grabbed my camera and just opened the door to run out. And we were with another couple, and Harry's like, wait till I stop the car. And I'm like, I don't have time. And I just ran up there to the front of the line. And I remember seeing that mother cub with her 3 babies out in the wild, not in a zoo. Watching her in the wild, and I just teared up. So I know that whole feeling is like, oh my God, look what look what I'm seeing. It's not on TV. It's not some fabulous photographer's photo that I'm looking at on Instagram. I'm seeing it. I'm here.
Right.
I'm in the moment.
And Becca, when
So
we
it's
met,
really-
when we met at the nature preserve, my sole intent was to share that sort of a feeling with you and Dwayne. And that really is a powerful thing to share with anyone. And it works with everybody, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that's
Yeah.
what Corina is also sharing and knows. And, you know, if you can get them out there and do it, then it's going to make a difference in that person's life, you know, if you share what you love. Rafi.
Well, after listening to Corina, I just want to say that my faith in humanity is restored.
There you go.
Really, really. Well, a week ago, I have a similar situation. Well, we were in the north part of the island. It was the January 1st. And in the morning, I just took my camera and said, well, let me see what can I find here. And there is a bird, it's a toddy, that I have never seen before. And I always wanted to catch. And was about 5 minutes in the woods and it was there. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. I just entered the house and say, okay, we can go home now. I'm ready. That was really, really amazing. And
What kind of bird was it, Rafi?
It's a toddy.
Yeah, you posted a photo on Sunlit Earth about it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the little green one with the red bill. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Where are you, Raphael?
Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic.
Oh, okay. He didn't say that. Yeah. My family, my mom's side of the family is actually from Santo Domingo.
Oh,
Ah.
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, I visited Rafi twice. We have an affiliate of our program there, and Raphael runs it. And we've done solar astronomy. We've birded together all around the island. Talk about a weird situation socially and ethically there, you know, with the Haiti side and the Dominican side. It's just, you know, it's just crazy, man. But we've I didn't know that. And good for you, because those are some of the friendliest people on earth. And they will make you eat, you know. You will eat wherever you go. Someone will be handing you food, and then someone will be handing you liquor shortly thereafter. Yeah, Raphael is one of the best people we have. So,
And Raphael, I love your bird artwork that's in the background.
hummingbirds.
Yeah, that's a gift from my wife. I was like, whoa. You know, that's some of the things that you get when you are part of this community, birding, all that stuff. We touch everybody around us, and my wife is always, hey, look at this. And someday just brought this painting, and I was like, oh, wow.
Oh, nice.
Corina, Raphael has some of our equipment, some camera gear and lenses that we've sent down to him, and a million telescopes and he does solar astronomy outreach with the people all around Santo Domingo. And we've done. Have you visited there with your parents, or?
I have not. I've actually never been to the Dominican Republic at all. No.
It's an exceptionally beautiful city, and it's very European in its architecture, especially Santo Domingo. There's lots of Spanish castles, and it's a cheap flight, man. And you know, once this vaccine comes out, maybe you should try that, because they've got birds.
You're welcome.
galore.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Raphael will take care of you. If your parents don't have friends that will, he will. But we were treated like kings there, and it's you know, it was very interestingly Spanish, European Spanish architecture, which I thought was awesome. And we went to a dungeon in the bottom of the castle that just freaked me out, man, for months. I couldn't think about ever having to stay in this dungeon that he showed me. But other than that, it was a beautiful city and lots of water and lots of wonderful food. So,
Wow.
Connie, what's going on over there? You got anything going on today?
Well, I had the pleasure of birding with Corina as part of the Master Birding course. And I have already shared with her how important the Blackbirders Week was for me personally. And I think every time I go out to bird, I'm reminded of the way in which it connects us. So last Sunday was our Christmas bird count, and I was assigned to Mason Mill Park and South Peachtree Creek Fork. And an American bittern, which is rare in Atlanta,
My favorite.
was seen there the day before the Christmas bird count. So when I arrived for the Christmas bird count, wearing binoculars would have been the only clue that I was a birder. But people kept coming up to me saying only these words: "Have you seen it yet?" Not saying what it was, but they were all talking about the American bittern. And, I don't know any of these people. They don't know me. But it was just a reminder of how connecting birding is as a group. Unfortunately, nobody saw it on Sunday, and we were very sad.
I was actually there on Sunday also looking for it, Connie. I didn't run into you, but I was there. I also did not see it.
There were lots of people looking for it. I don't think it was there on Sunday. So, Corina, I wanted to ask, other than the Nature Center, where's your favorite place to bird in Atlanta?
Oh, I would actually say that Piedmont Park has become so it's tough. Piedmont Park and Emma Wetlands, that's like part of Blue Heron Nature Preserve. But Piedmont Park, because of its accessibility, and Stephen, that's where I was this morning, freezing my face off. Yeah. There was like snot dripping from my nose, but I couldn't tell. It's horrible.
You look beautiful, don't worry.
There's like so many different kinds of habitat there. So you can go there, you can get your water birds, you can get your little, flycatchers, you can get your warblers, you can get your wrens, your blackbirds. I mean, you can just get, your field dwelling birds, like your bluebirds. You can just get such a diversity of species there. So I love that. Like if I'm taking people out to go birding who've never gone birding before, that's like place number one that I want to go, because it doesn't feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, right? Because that's a very uncomfortable, that can be a really uncomfortable experience for folks, but you can see so much at the same time. So
yeah, I love that too. I live about a block away from there, so I probably could have seen you out the window from where you were this morning. And they've got a really varied varied system out there. You can get wetlands, you can get the field, you can get the hawks, you can get the hummingbirds, you can walk up to the botanical garden. It is a wonderful place right in the middle of the city. This Emma you're talking about at Blue Heron, is that the one that has the rounded bird blind in it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I really like that. Whoever built that, I'd like to have them come over to Clyde Shepherd and take care of some bird blinds for us. But I love that place too. I've never seen much at Blue Heron, but I've never given it much of a chance.
I really go there for sparrows. So when the sparrows are really here, like that's kind of where I go, and it's just like a beautiful place to be. I love it. Yeah.
All right. So 2 things, and I know we're coming up on our hour. 3 things actually. Number 1, it's pronounced Pileated Woodpecker.
No. Because, and maybe Alexander, you can help me with this. Someone told me, so like they're named that because of the flaming red, feathers.
Pile of hair.
That's like from the word pileate, which is correct me if I'm wrong, but a pileate is like a red hat that like someone in the UK, some certain kind of like maybe like guard or something would wear. It's called a pileate, and so therefore a pileated woodpecker. It's not like a pileate, you know what I mean? So
we'll call BS on that. I'm gonna go ahead and call BS on that.
We'll have to circle back to the conversation.
Alexander, is there a pileate hat in the UK? No. Okay.
I've not heard of one, but I would pronounce it pileated.
Thank you.
Well, she's from the UK, so what does she know? All right. So, no, I don't care. My father-in-law pronounces everything wrong. But anyway, on that same vein, if people didn't know you were from the city before, when you announced that that's the first blue jay you've ever seen at age 21, they definitely know you're from the city then.
Right.
And the pileated, now I'm saying it.
Yes.
The pileated was also my bird that I looked for when I first started birding. And I was so excited when I saw one. I got a picture of it. It looked just like somebody took a chicken, spray painted it black, and put a mohawk on it and threw it out in the woods. And, I thought it was pretty awesome. Next, your favorite Star Trek character. This is a very serious question I'd like you to consider strongly before answering.
I don't really have much to consider. Character. Stephen, you're not going to like this. I've never seen Star Trek.
Oh my God. Where's the end button? Hold on. Okay.
I meant to tell you beforehand, didn't have to get disappointed on camera. I forgot to tell you beforehand.
That's a tiny chink in your super large, beautiful armor. So I'm not worried about it. I fully expect you to have an answer the next time we talk. Okay.
Okay, I will figure it out.
I gave you fair warning. All right. And the last thing, we run this nonprofit to promote exactly what you're doing. And we would like to award you a $500 grant to continue doing whatever you're doing. And you use it for anything you want. And it's a small thing. It's just, we're a small program, but all of us are donors here and we are super, super proud of you. So if you will send me your PayPal address, we would like to sponsor you through our program. And there's no strings attached. Just, I don't need any, you don't have to mention it to anybody. Just take some money and we want to help you just do whatever it is you got to do to keep going. So would you mind sending me your PayPal address after the meeting?
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Well, it's no big deal. I wish it was $50,000, but we've had sort of a rough year this year. Nonprofits have seen their donations drop by 80% in the last 2 years in this country, science nonprofits. So I wish it was more, but we want to do something to help you. And if you want to just, go have fun, just do whatever you want with the money. So does everybody vote okay on that one? Everybody says okay. Okay. All right.
I started sweating everywhere. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, good. Hopefully you can do something good with it and you can continue what you're doing and make your life just a tiny bit easier with a little extra cash. Did anyone else, but I will need your PayPal address.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any praise they'd like to heap upon me? I mean, Corina, before we cut this week's show?
No, I just want to say that I hope that someday soon I get to see you on a bird hike and meet you in person.
Yes,
I said the same thing.
Of course. Yes, indeed. Likewise.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Well, that's awesome. That is our show this week. It's been quite an adventure, and thank you so much for tuning in, Corina. I hope that you had fun. I know it was, there's just some topics that need further discussion, and I don't really have the right words for some of them, but I want you to know we're behind you and we support you. So
thank you so much. That's
This Week in Nature. What's the name of the show again? In Birding and Nature Photography on Sunlit Earth. And every single person here, I want you to know it's how really important it is to me and how grateful I am that you all show up on every week for this show. Corina, this is recorded and will be posted on our Facebook page. And then we usually get 1,000, 1,500 viewers over the next couple weeks. And thank you again for being on the show. And go get some much needed rest from Zoom meetings today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Well, adios, everybody. And we will see you hopefully next week on This Week in Birding and Nature Photography.
Bye. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.